Hello, let's talk about van prices. Currently, there is no crash, but is the one just around the corner? What's happened in the market over the last 2 years? Are Volkswagen ripping new customers off? Should you sell your van now, or should you be buying a van now? Let's give a bit of background to this. Some of the reasons you will be aware of, the obviously highly publicised, highly talked about semiconductor shortage. But there are other reasons behind it which you might not be aware of. Historically, VW vans have always had really strong residual values, much better than any of the alternatives which you could buy in this marketplace. Volkswagen's a strong brand, and especially the transporter model. There are so many groups, so many forums and festivals and meets, and the plethora of aftermarket parts. There is far more than any other brand in the camper van market. March 2020 was the start of COVID lockdowns and the beginning of what became the year of the staycation. All of a sudden, vans, combis, campers and even caravels became extremely sought after, much more demand than previous years. Prices of used vans soared, and at the same time there was a very small supply of new vans coming through. This worsened over the next 2 years with factors such as the already mentioned semiconductor chip caused because of the fires in the factories. As the automotive manufacturers actually reduced the manufacture of new vehicles in 2020, these semiconductor chips were becoming more and more required by other markets. People were working from home more, they needed laptop computers, they needed printers. So the suppliers of these semiconductors in the already shrunk market, they were starting to put these chips into other devices as the demand for those became far greater. Other factors, the factories were actually closing because of COVID, they weren't able to open, and when the factories reopened, workers were poorly, they were sick, they couldn't get in, they weren't allowed, they had to isolate if they'd got COVID. So these factories were drastically reduced as far as the workforce was concerned. So obviously they weren't going to be able to produce those vehicles. Plastics became harder to obtain, and obviously there's a lot of plastics in the vehicles which you have. The Suez Canal blockage, this caused major disruption in the transportation of goods all around the world. So parts which were needed for vehicles, who knows where they were? Shipping containers were all over the place. It took a while to get this back under control and get the shipping containers in the place which they needed to be at. There was also reduced capacity as far as lorry drivers are concerned to actually transport the goods, drive the vehicles to actually get them from one place to another. The availability wasn't there. And on top of this, Volkswagen themselves suffered a major catastrophe. 4,000 vehicles went down on a ship, the Felicity Ace cargo ship. Yes, the ship was destined for the USA, so that shouldn't affect the UK market, but it does, because that's 4,000 Volkswagen vehicles which needed to be reproduced. Yeah, a lot of them were Audis, a lot of them were Porsches, but they're still drawing in those same components, the same raw materials which are used to produce the vans. So it has an effect. And then we've got the closure of the factories in Ukraine. A lot of parts, a lot of components which are used by Volkswagen come from the Ukraine. This happened all of a sudden. There was no pre-planning of it. They had to actually get this done from other places in the world, and it's not something which happened overnight. Additionally, price increases to fuel, gas, electric, all added to the problems which we're suffering. All this not only led to fewer vehicles actually being produced, but also an increased cost of those vehicles which were coming off the production line. So are Volkswagen ripping people off with these new prices? No, as I've just explained, all these costs have added to the increased production costs. It costs more to produce a vehicle. Look at the costs of other manufacturers, other car manufacturers, other van manufacturers. They've all gone up in price. They've had to increase their prices because of all these other problems which they've had. You can see that the cost of goods is actually increasing. Just look at your daily food costs. That pint of milk which you bought in 2019 is now a significant percentage higher than it was pre-COVID. All these cost increases have affected everybody. Additionally, as far as vehicles are concerned, manufacturers are having to look at alternative fuel methods for transport, namely electric vehicles. They are invested millions of pounds in the technologies to be able to produce these vehicles. That's having an impact. All these factors are just adding up to the costs. So no, Volkswagen are not ripping people off with the new prices. It's just a direct result of increases in materials, transportation, labour, fuel and economic factors. So today, if you want to buy a new van, not only have you got an extremely long wait, but you've got to pay a significant amount more for it, and therefore used prices stay strong. So what's happening in the market now? Well, not much has changed at present. I've spoken to a few dealers and they've said it's a pretty standard November. In fact, one of them actually told me that they'd had more inquiries and more sales than in previous years, which is just odd. How can that be? I spoke to another one and he's trying to get new stock in because people are still coming in to buy the vehicles, and you still can't get stock at what you'd normally deem to be a reduced price. The values are still up there. Interestingly, even Caravelle values are staying strong. But this can be seen in one of the Caravelle's main competitors, the Mercedes V-Class. The Mercedes V-Class residuals have been incredibly strong, and I know this from personal experience. In February 2020, I was actually looking quite a lot at the Mercedes V-Class. I actually took a few out for a drive. Fantastic vehicle. It's like an E-Class inside with the van-like shape. Really, really good vehicle. And I was looking at picking up vehicles. You could be picking them up at 18, 19,000 at kind of trade price. And then you soon saw that going up. And more I was looking at as I'd got into the COVID era, it was like, well, hang on a minute. That one is the spec I'm looking for, but it's now £6,000 more. And you could just see these prices just rocketing. And the Caravelle has done the same. It's really, really holding its value. And dealers don't like to sit on stock. A lot of these dealers have actually got their stock, which is on the forecourt, tied up with finance. And therefore, with the interest rates increasing, the finance which they're paying on these vehicles is actually higher. So they don't want those vehicles just sitting there on the forecourt. So they're not going to price them too high so they don't sell. They're still pricing them right. They are pricing them the way the market is. And they're selling. They know that they're going to sell at these prices. There's no significant drop off in them. They're maintaining the values. I went to a camper show a few weeks ago and there was a lot of newly converted camper vans there. A lot of the 6.1s, and they had some pretty eye-watering price tags on them, but they were selling. But some of these were high-spec vans. They weren't very high-spec at all. They had cheap conversions in them on a cheap base van. Oh, sir, this one's lovely. Look at this one. This is in a unique colour. Yeah, because it was a poverty spec van, which you've actually had resprayed because it just looked rubbish before. And you're selling it as a high-spec van. People who don't know what they're buying can be getting pushed into these things. They see this nice shiny new van and it's got this on it and it's got this on it, not knowing what they're buying, and they're spending their £60,000+ on these vans. And I think this is something which we're going to see heading into 2023. If these cheaper conversions using the cheaper parts and the lower spec, poverty spec vans are selling at these big money, then that's only going to help the likes of Eco Wagon, Three Bridges, AI Campers, Bristol Campervan Company. All those sell their products at even higher because they do have a high spec product and they can actually demonstrate that their product is far superior than some of these other ones. People are still going to pay that money. The conversion companies can't reduce the prices of the base vans. The price of the base vans have increased so much that the cost of a campervan conversion is going to start at a certain point. It can't start at £20,000 anymore. It's got to start at £10,000 more or whatever it is, because the base vans are they're just not there for those cheap values anymore. But people are just not going to be able to afford them. There's actually a few factors here. Yes, fuel prices, your petrol, your diesel, your gas, your electric, your food, your mortgage payments, everything has gone up. So it is going to be a struggle, but a lot of people still use their vehicle as a daily driver, like myself. You know, I go to work in my vehicle. I take the kids places, I go shopping. I need a vehicle, and if I need a vehicle, then I've got the ideal vehicle already. I can do everything in the vehicle. I can do all those things I mentioned, but I can also go away at weekends. I can also have a holiday in my van. If I changed it to a car to try and save money, but don't forget car prices have also rocketed, then I'm actually going to be worse off because I'm not going to have anywhere to sleep. I'm then going to have to buy a holiday, spend extra money on a holiday, which at the moment I don't need to do. By having the van, I've got everything under one roof. I don't have to spend out on that foreign holiday if I've not got the money for it. Staycations could well be back with a boom in 2023. People not wanting to spend those extra costs on going on that foreign holiday, which have also increased in prices because of the fuel costs and the labour costs and everything else which goes with it. It's becoming more unaffordable to go on these foreign holidays. So if you've got a van, if you've not got a van and you want to get a van, then the cost of your foreign holiday payments could be going towards the payments for a van. So the market's still going to be there. People are still going to be wanting to buy vans. Yes, it is inevitable that some people will have to sell. I've seen a lot of adverts recently. Must sell. Change of circumstances. Blah de blah de blah. Forces sale. Reduced as need to sell. But the vans haven't been reduced, or they might have been reduced because it had an astronomical figure to start with. But the new figure isn't a cheap figure. It's still a high price for a van. Over the last 2 years, vehicle prices have increased by approximately 30%. It's extremely unlikely we're going to see a crash to take the values down to pre-COVID levels. With the new prices of vehicles going up, it just holds those used prices there as well. This is just my personal thoughts, but you're not all of a sudden be able to buy a Transporter T6 for £5,000. It's not going to happen. The new ones are up there. The used prices will track them. Supply is coming back to cater for demand, but these prices are much higher than they previously were. And with these higher prices, it's just going to keep that used prices higher than they previously would have been. So if you are looking to buy, there might be a few more vans available in 2023, as some people unfortunately will have to part from their vehicle because it might just be a leisure vehicle, an extra bonus vehicle which they'd had. They've got the work vehicle. So there might be some more hitting the market, but I wouldn't be expecting any cheap vans. I can't see there being cheap vans anymore. So should you sell now? Well, now December's always a quieter month. There's a lot less people actually looking for new vehicles because obviously we've got Christmas around the corner and people are more concentrated on Christmas rather than a new vehicle. So you're always going to have fewer buyers looking for vehicles in December. Once we get to January and the early months of the year, that's when the car market will start to increase again as more buyers are entering the market looking for new vehicles. And like I say, there could be some more available. The market might be wider as people do unfortunately have to sell the vehicles. As newer vehicles do start to hit the market again, we will start seeing more used vehicles coming into the market because obviously the part exchanges. If you've bought a nice brand new camper van, you might have a camper van to part exchange, so that's going to be going in the part exchange. So there will be more vehicles in that market because of people having to sell and the part exchanges of the newer vehicles. There'll be more choice and possibly lower demand. But if you do have a genuinely high spec van, good craftsmanship, good materials, good components in there, you're going to be far better placed to sell your vehicle than somebody with a bad conversion, on which you can see more of here. What do you think is going to happen with the market? Let me know in the comments. Take care. Thanks for watching.